Julian, usually I'm doing this by myself and I got like a million takes. What's good, everybody? Zach here. Some of you know me as Indiemoto, and today we're at the Float Factory, and this is Rep Your Set.
What you gonna do? Rep your set, yeah, we fresh to death. From east to west, float on my friends. Rep your set, yeah, we fresh to death. From east to west, float on my friends.
So I'm actually out here for Seek and Shred. We just got finished with that, so we're here at the Float Factory. These guys allowed me to borrow one of their boards, which actually just so happens to be almost identical to the setups that I ride. So this is actually gonna be perfect for this. So this is actually not my board, but this is pretty much an identical setup to what I ride back home. Jeff was kind enough to actually build this board for me for Camp Seek and Shred that we were just at. So we'll kind of go over my setup here. Basically, all of the boards that I ride, I am now officially on W rails. My trail board was a W setup, and then my street setup was just straight rails, but recently I have gone 100% W rails, so this is pretty much my street setup. W rails, I like them for street because it actually, the way the board's designed, how it kind of tips down like this on the edges, like when you do curb nudges and things, technically where the wheel hits the curb now is actually lower, so it actually helps a little bit when you're doing curb nudges or trying to climb up on top of quarter pipes. It just makes curb nudging and anything with your front end just a little bit easier. And when you're doing things like nose slides and stuff, because this feels more like an actual skateboard, it just feels better to me. Like when you lock in with nose slides, you're kind of like down and in it a little bit more. It just has an overall skateboard feel, more of a skateboard feel with the pads kind of angled up that way. On my street setup, I also use a Cush Low in the back. This is because the Cush Low, it's got a nice little pocket here, but it doesn't have too crazy of the edges where, like, if you're trying to do, you know, hippie jumps or body varials or things like that when you're trying to pick your feet up, you don't accidentally catch that edge and kind of tip the board over. So the Cush Low is actually really nice for that because it's a little bit of a flatter surface, but you still get that nice pocket in the back for your foot. Moving on, I've got to have lifesavers on basically every single board that I ride. These things are literal lifesavers if you are into one-wheeling, and especially into tricks and street riding. Trails also, I mean, rocks hit your tire when you got low PSI and things, but for tricks, I mean, you're jumping off curbs, you're slamming down on that rim, you hit it a lot. So these things, every single board I own, these protect the motor so well, gotta have them. After that, I gotta switch out to TFL grip tape every single time. Stock grip tape that comes, it's not gritty enough for me. I don't like the super chunky stuff, I kinda like the in-between. My feet move around a lot when I'm riding. I'm kind of pretty much always adjusting my feet as I'm riding depending on what I'm doing. So TFL grip tape is really grippy, but it's not too grippy where I can't adjust my feet. So it's kind of the sweet spot for me, and that's what I like. So after that, gotta have fender deletes on all of my boards. I do not ride a fender. On my board back home, I actually just had some custom fender deletes made from the homies in Madison, so shout out to you guys, thank you very much. It's got Carved Creative logo in it, super sick. After that, we got bang bumpers. These are a must-have, especially if you're riding trails or street. I think when you use stock, I think when I was riding just stock bumpers with like the float plates on there, I was literally going through stock bumpers every 3 weeks at minimum, every 3 weeks, and it's not really fun, especially when you have to order them from Future Motion and get them over to you. It takes time, all that stuff, and you gotta pay so much for them. The fact that TheFloatLife made something that completely replaces that, we don't have float plates. If you don't have stock bumpers, you don't need the float plates anymore. It's kind of all in one. And these things are super heavy duty. Like this isn't my board, so these things look fresh and they're brand new. On my board, they're so worn down and just beat to hell that my screws are like, they get ground down as I ride and stuff, but you can still ride them. Like I've put them through hell and back and they still do what they're supposed to do. And as you ride them more and more, you kind of get this nice, like, they kind of start to like form to how you ride. Like when you take corners and stuff, they kind of just, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but the more you ride them, the better they feel. It's actually pretty awesome. So great for nose slides. when you're going down trails, chunky trails, any of that stuff, and you start to tail slide, because these are kind of concave, you can actually steer and control your slide a little bit more. So when you're racing, that is absolutely key. Because if you can't control it, you run into things you don't want to run into, and that is not fun. After that, right now on this one, this is a Hoosier, I think a Whisper that's on here, but currently I'm actually running a Street Pro on my boards at home, Street Pro, and then a Maxxis 5 or a 6.5 on my trail board. But the Street Pro for my street setup, I absolutely love it. Super nimble, fun for sliding, all that stuff, just great all-around tire. Other than that, that's pretty much it. The only other thing that I have on my board at home that wouldn't be on this one is the Electrolytes Pro. That is in the taillight, so gotta have that, gotta flash the lights and stuff like that, all the cool different patterns and things that they have. It's super cool, so shout out to them as well. Otherwise, the only other thing that I would upgrade on my board would be bearings. TFL makes some killer bearings, and I think I use the FAG bearings from time to time too. They're actually really good as well. So there's lots out there, but TFL's got pretty much everything you need to get you going. But if I would have to say one thing that I would get to upgrade my board to just make it feel better for anybody just getting into this, if you guys are looking for one thing, you don't want to spend your money on all of this right away, the biggest thing to me is the tire and bumpers, honestly. Those two things kind of really help how you can ride and what you can and can't do on the board, you know, the bumpers especially. So after that, I'd say W rails. I absolutely love how they ride. They lock you in, and gotta have huge shout out to Jeff for coming up with those things, because it honestly, like I said, it just feels like a skateboard, and it's what I've been waiting for on a one wheel. So shout out to TheFloatLife, you guys rock. And that's pretty much my setup. Thank you guys for watching my rep to set. If you guys got any questions about anything in the video, hit them in the comments below. I will check you next time. Peace.
Yo, that was a dope rep your set. Shout out to Zach for coming out. Always great having you. Check out his dope content he's been making with Carve Creative. Check out his socials at Indiemoto. And if you're about to go ride, go send it. If not, click on some more videos over here and stay stoking. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Sheesh.